All right, and we are live. Welcome, everyone. As people join this live session about AI in action, my name is Matt. Many people know me as Mohawk Denny, and we've got Corey Hulen and Rob Slaughter. We'll do some introductions to them in a moment, because I'm assuming if you're watching me now, you're watching it later, because you're probably getting pulled in right now to come watch this AI in action live event with Defense Unicorns and Mattermost. So yeah, Corey, excited to talk to some folks here?
Yeah, super excited. Like I said, two subjects that I love. It's great.
Yeah, that's great. We've got Rob. Rob always likes coming on, sharing the goodness of what they're up to and what we're up to at Defense Unicorns. So
yeah, super exciting. Especially hanging out with Corey and Mattermost. Go back a number of years supporting Air Force work, and been a user of Mattermost for a long period of time. So super excited to chat a little bit about it.
Fantastic. And if you guys are live, if you've joined us, please let me know. Jump in the comments. I can hear us now, so we are definitely live. It's definitely coming through. So if you guys can see us live, please let us know in the messages. And but otherwise, we'll go ahead and get started. So for today's conversation, we're going to talk about AI in action with Rob Slaughter, who's the CEO of Defense Unicorns, as many of you know, and Corey Hulen is the CEO of Mattermost and creator. I'm going to give a fun fact about Corey because we've talked about Rob a lot. I learned today that Corey coded a lot of Mattermost in an RV bathroom as he traveled the country many years ago. So he can share more on that if he wants, but thought it was a pretty cool fact. Otherwise, Rob, over to you.
Yeah, appreciate that, Matt. Corey, like I said, super excited about this. Been a user of Mattermost both in the department and out. And one of the things that I'd actually love to hear from you is how are people using Mattermost today? Both inside the government, outside the government, and then would love to hear, especially on the defense side, like who are some of the defense customers you've been supporting, and what are the missions that you guys have had a lot of success in?
Yeah. I mean, I think when you think of Mattermost, it's sort of secure collaboration for mission critical teams. And when you boil that down, we don't like necessarily use the word chat, but it's a chat platform at the end of the day, and it's a really sort of high secure chat platform that's used in a lot of these sort of areas, whether it be DoD or federal or our sort of public or private customers. So I'd say the main use cases that we see Mattermost being very successful, we start obviously in sort of the DevOps world. That's kind of our bread and butter. So whether it's DevOps, SRE, or engineering teams using Mattermost, that's one really great area for us that we focus. Another is just security teams. Like, a lot of security teams, whether it's a red team or a blue team type scenario, or they're just doing it like security incident response. So we see a lot of those types of teams as well. Those are sort of our specialized areas. I'd say that's where our sweet spot is. We have a lot of operations as well, which is really nice, especially in the sort of DoD or Fed world. A lot of customers who are using us sort of in their day-to-day stuff. So maybe to kind of highlight some of those use cases, for us, like one of our big champions and awesome partners has been Platform One over at the Air Force, and it's been great. Like I said, I mean, I think they kind of started really as more than me, but started kind of as a DevOps shop and then kind of really grew from there and went crazy with a whole bunch of stuff, which is awesome. I'd say on that platform, we have some really like mission focused people like Air Mobility Command, Space Force, stuff like that. So we have a lot of great operations teams there as well, which is kind of, I wouldn't say newer to us, but very, very focused for us in that space. And so it's been really great to work with sort of a lot of those customers or customer base. We also just outside the DoD, we have a lot of like 3 of the 5 largest banks in the world run Mattermost. The largest electric car manufacturer in the world runs Mattermost. So, we deal with a lot of private industry customers as well. And usually the themes revolve around things like security, compliance, or privacy. That's kind of our sweet spot. That's where we play really well. And we do great in that area.
Yeah, one of my favorite Mattermost stories to actually connected to Platform One was right when the COVID lockdowns started in March 2020. probably, to see if I got my dates right. Team engineers at Platform One and Mattermost really responded, and really in just a matter of 24 hours got some capabilities up, allowed people to continue to communicate. Obviously, Air Force DoD networks weren't really prepared for that many people to be at remote work. Things are a lot better today than they were now, but I really think like my first exposure to Mattermost was jumping online with 10, 20, 30,000 people who were all like trying to figure out how do they better work together remote. And I know you guys have taken it from really just chat ops and business environments all the way to expanded into chat ops and really mission environments and the operational picture. So it's been really, really great following your guys' story and journey.
How about you guys with the sort of defense unicorns and maybe the AI piece? Like, where do you guys see that market, and where are you guys coming from?
Yeah, so defense unicorns, as a lot of folks who are joining us know, like we have been heavily focused on secure software delivery and in these very, very hard environments, typically air-gapped environments, typically very complex environments, typically highly regulated environments. AI is just software. And so when we look at the problem, what we're trying to figure out is how do you take these amazing capabilities that people are getting exposed to, like using things like ChatGPT, and how do you actually get those into private, secure environments, both in the cloud and on edge and then on-prem. Really, obviously, large language models have exploded and they have a lot of utility, but they have way more utility when you give them context. And the way you give them context is access to your data. And so it's really about how do we deliver and deploy Gen AI capabilities where the data is, because by and large, a lot of these organizations, and especially the Department of Defense, like there is not centrally managed data. There might be strategies, but there's definitely not centrally managed locations to where all the data of everything exists. You kind of got to go where the data is. And if you go where the data is, now you have that context. And if you have that context, now you have something that's much more powerful.
Cool. No, that's awesome.
Yeah, and then one of the other things that I'm super interested in talking with you about is I know you guys are working on an AI plugin, and one of the things that we're gonna be talking about. I know you're right now it's in beta mode. I know we're one of the folks using it and working with it. Would love to hear some of yours and Mattermost's plans for how you guys see Mattermost evolving with Gen AI.
Yeah, I mean, I think for us, it's really about giving a framework to these different AI models where you can interact with them via Mattermost. And for us, what we really think about is like, how do you do that in a compliant, secure way, right? If you're asking questions to your chat system, you definitely want to make sure it's audited and capable in that sense, and make sure stuff's not leaking out of it. So we see a lot of interesting use cases, obviously around that, around being sort of the framework or the bridge into those models. I think that's a really key piece. I think like securing those models, like I said, building compliance or auditing around those models is always extremely interesting, at least to our customer base, I'm sure to yours as well. So those are really interesting sort of areas that we see it. I would say, those are really interesting areas where we see it. I'm trying to think of some of the other interesting things that we're doing. How about you? How about where do you guys see this going?
Yeah, it's been super fascinating. Throughout my life, have probably seen a number of waves in technology, but quite honestly, I've never seen something quite like this. And so it's super exciting. And for defense unicorns and our national security mission heroes, like what we're really focused on is making sure that nobody's going and entering engagement at a disadvantage. Like we don't even want people to be entering a fair fight. Well, it just so happens on the commercial side, these technologies have exploded. And so really the only way to make sure that people aren't, entering that fair fight to where they have the advantage is by making sure that all of the tools, all of the capabilities that they're used to having, wall access to the internet, just, internet connectivity environments, their commercial environments, like how do they actually have those capabilities in their mission environments? Whether that's like an actual physical structure, like is that a plane, is that a submarine? Whether that's like some comm edge point, or whether that's just a secure classified cloud. For us, it's about bringing software to those systems, and obviously AI is going to be a huge part of that.
Cool. No, that's awesome.
And then one of the questions I have for you, because I get a lot of talks on this, especially because the number of folks that in the tech community have ridden these waves of technology, and some of them have matured into amazing things, and others of them have kind of turned into sort of fads and never actually hit their true peak. And so one of the questions I have for you, Corey, is in your mind, is Gen AI, is it a fad? Is it this is just the tip of the iceberg of what's to come? Like, how do you see this evolving over the next couple of years?
I mean, I think for me, it's definitely hugely both. Like my previous company I co-founded was an AI startup company, spun out of Stanford Research. We sold it to Salesforce. So that was kind of like first gen AI, if you want to think of it like that. I think when you look at sorry, not in terms of Gen AI, but first generation AI. When you look at things today in terms of Gen AI and LMs, it's such an amazing technology. And so I think it is extremely sticky and disruptive. And we're already seeing a lot of those use cases be extremely sticky and disruptive. I think there's probably some overhype going on too in certain verticals. It's like anything. It's people always like, oh, it's gonna solve this. It's gonna solve all these huge problems. I think when you talk about AI in the general sense, I think it has an amazingly bright future. When you talk about Gen AI and LLMs, it's a really great technology that you can apply to a certain set of problems, and it's going to solve those problems extremely well. And it already has, right? There's probably other areas where there's other technologies better applied, but at least in terms of especially for us being a text-based chat app, large language models, this is just a really great fit for our audience in terms of how they want to interact with the system and how people think about it. So for me, it's definitely both. I think it's extremely disruptive and sticky, and it's already shifted landscapes. I also think there's just, like anything, like any wave that comes through our tech community, there's some overhype here or there. I can't really necessarily point to an area and say, oh, that's overhyped. If I could, I think I'd be a billionaire. But I just get that sense that as amazing as this technology is, and even as we see it really shifting people's mindsets, and it's really cool to see and maybe a little scary to see too. I think it's also a little bit overhyped here or there as well. How about yourself? Where do you see it? How do you think of it?
Yeah, I think for me, it's 90% not hype, and then I think 10% hype. So I think for when I look at it, it is a tool, and I think where the 10% overhype is because people are taking that tool and trying to apply it across everything, all functions. And so to me, I see generative AI systems, particularly large language models, as one of the most disruptive tools, if you will, of humanity. We have created this amazing tool that as a civilization we now get to wield. But to take the hammer analogy, if it is a hammer, people are now looking at problems and thinking everything's a nail. And so one of the examples I like to give is, if you ask a large language model to do basic arithmetic, 2 + 2, it can do it. Obviously, it can do advanced math courses and to do amazing things. But it takes a long time to do that calculation. Versus if you just use a simple calculator, you get an almost instantaneous response. And so to me, it's one of the most transformation technologies. There's probably a small part that's overhyped. I think there's a lot to compare with the internet. Obviously, the internet changed society, but there was the .com boom, and there was things that were overhyped. And so, is it here to stay? Absolutely. Is it going to transform? I think day-to-day lives. I think absolutely. But with all things, there probably is a little bit that's kind of stretching into the area of what people would call it being overhyped.
Well, you see all this kind of doom and gloom in terms of it's going to take these jobs, that job. And I can't remember where the quote came from, I can't remember the exact quote, but somebody had something similar when Excel came out or spreadsheets came out, it's going to put all the accountants out of business. And it didn't. I kind of feel the same way about Gen AI or LMs. No, it's just going to create a whole nother set of industries or problems that are going to flourish around this. So I'm in one of those camps where I don't think it's going to put a lot of people out of business. Their current job as it exists today might change,
Yep.
But I think that's always interesting too, because you see that kind of hype train a lot. Like, these
Yep.
things are going to be coding themselves. And like, I hope that is the case. Like, I find that such a fascinating case in the future, but like, I don't see it today, I guess.
Yeah. So excited to get to our demo, but kind of last question for you related to kind of how Gen AI systems are evolving. Like, where do you see the community going? Like, where do you see the opportunities? Where do you see the risks? You kind of mentioned you don't see it taking people's jobs. Like, how do you see generative AI as a concept from a technology perspective? How do you see that evolving over the next couple of years?
I mean, for me, I'm really fascinated about the case of like the AI being my impersonation, right? Like, so the best example, when you look at Mattermost, like we use Mattermost for everything, right? Our company does is that we run, not only do we build Mattermost, we use Mattermost to run Mattermost, right? And so it has pretty much 99% of all of the things I say and do, right? So wouldn't it be great if you could have an LLM model that just kind of consumes all that information, and then you can just ask Corey's AI bot what Corey thinks, right? When I'm not around. And so I think when you think about those types of futures, right, no one's going to like necessarily like, base the world on those decisions, but it's a great sort of way to interact with a corpus or a knowledge set. And whether that's Corey personally, or just let's say like Mattermost tech as a whole, when we think about our community and how we want to interact, like it's such an amazing piece of technology to be able to have sort of that intimate level of interaction. Like, let me ask these questions, as if I was talking to Corey. And then you can kind of go to like the stupid next level, which is like, well, what happens when the Corey AI bot is talking to the Rob AI bot, and what comes out of those things? So I think those things are all super. I mean, some of that sort of stretch, obviously, but I think that's like a super fascinating thing to think about where these things are going. Because I know I would find immense usage of that. So the best example is, at Mattermost, we had some, like, let's say we had someone who is a React Native expert, right? And there's all these channels of data around React Native technology. And let's say that person leaves the company. And it's not just technology, it's technology very specific to how Mattermost uses it. It'd be amazing to be able to just ask the AI, like, hey, like for Mattermost usage of React Native, like we're doing these things, does this make sense, right? And because it has the whole corpus of our history, being able to answer it in a very articulate way. So I think I see scenarios like that are just super fascinating, super interesting when we talk about the future.
Yeah.
How about yourself?
Yeah, I think Matt actually said, Matt, do you want to put up a question? I think we got a question there. Okay, Andrew, yep. What do we think is the biggest challenge of introducing AI in defense? I think it's really security and accreditation, which sometimes, hopefully, go hand in hand, which is, the Gen AI systems still require that context, and that context requires data. And the data lives in these environments that have ATOs and have accreditation. And so I think typical, just with the defense at large, has struggled to deliver, deploy, and sustain modern software capabilities. I don't think AI is any different than that. I think it's the exact same challenge, because at the end of the day, AI is just software. And curious, Corey, if you had any other thoughts to that.
No, I think you're really right. When we look at it from a Mattermost perspective, it's around compliance and making sure things are not leaking. And you have that problem with just your existing software today, right? So it's nothing, although the technology is new, like the problem set is not new. And it's about how do you fit into that system and work in that system in a way that's secure and compliant. So I think you kind of hit the nail on the head there.
Yep. And then we have another question from Brett. And I actually think that the best way to answer this question, Brett, of what real-time mission objectives does this support? What are some use cases for someone like Air Mobility Command who uses Mattermost today? I think, honestly, the best thing to do is probably segue over to the demo of showing you two things sort of interacting together. It's Defense Unicorn's AI for National Security, which is a really predominantly focused on a backend that mirrors the ChatGPT API surface, but using an open source LLM, and then connects to, in some cases, our own front end. And in the case that we're going to show you today, it connects with Mattermost in their AI plugin. And so what you get is really Gen AI capabilities using open source, LLMs. In this case, it's Mistral 7B. So we'll kind of show you and walk through you kind of just some examples. And, you know, I think every unit's going to be different. And like I said, I think the biggest thing is like, you know, it's hard to know what the exact use case is going to be of maximum value. But the way I'd say it is, you know, imagine if you had, you know, ChatGPT, but ChatGPT had access to your data and information. And if that was the case, how would your mission operations change? A lot of the capabilities that we're developing, you know, in general, open source large language models are not necessarily best in class, like you know, OpenAI's. And so there is some lagging in what would be like the ultimate standard. The other thing that we see across the community is compute matters. And so a lot of the Gen AI SaaS solutions are using, you know, a lot of infrastructure on the back end. And when we work with national security and defense customers, what we find is they have very restrictive compute constraints. And so the byproduct of what you can do from a mission perspective is, well, what data can you feed it? You know, what is your infrastructure? And then can you get it accredited in the environment? I know for AI for national security, we have gone through the accreditation process at you know, both classified and in the process of unclassified stuff. Maybe we've shown this before. I think we maybe not. This might be the first time we've shown AI for national security connected directly with Mattermost. And Brett, hopefully when you see the demo, you can you know, maybe connect some dots or maybe ask us some questions on what it might be able to do. And then with that, Matt, I'll transition. Oh, sweet, it's up. Okay, let's give this a try. So the first persona I'll probably do is not related to an AMC one. It's probably, you know, just software engineer. So it's user experience perspective. You just tag AI and say, you know, write me a unit test using, say, Python. We'll do something super simple. Hello world. Make sure to focus on edge cases like capital, like H and W, and just see what it does. So like most Gen AI systems, you know, they come out of the box with different languages that they support. And so, you know, the languages that they support is a function of the large language model. Of course, most of them support a lot of the common languages that people would be interested in. I know this model at least supports Python. Let's see if they, you know, I think Go as well. Can you rewrite it in Go? Let's see if it does. And so, you know, from a commercial side of the house, a lot of people are used to using things like Copilot and other software engineering tools to streamline their software development cycles. You know, of course, in sensitive and classified environments, like you don't have access to those tools. And what we're trying to show here is in this case, you do. Because what's getting showed here is you know, a local deployment, or actually not a local, but a private deployment of both Mattermost and AI for national security. These same capabilities are actually in a lot more secure environments. This particular one is running in a private AWS cluster, but we have other customers that are also running them on-prem. Let's see if this actually works as I go back to it. Yep, okay, cool. What else should we run? Let's do another common use case is translations, both with audio files, but I'm not going to show you the audio file version, but I'll probably just grab something real quick that I don't fully understand and see if it can do this. Okay, can you translate this to English? Here's to hoping. And okay, we plan to move on upcoming. We plan to move next Tuesday, basically upcoming Tuesday. You know, a lot of use cases that we find in the field. A lot of people are interacting with a wide variety of different languages, both in text, but then also obviously audio files as well. One of the other things I'm going to show you is kind of a maintenance example, and this maintenance example is only really possible because I fed it a short brief table up at the top. And so, you know, type of use case you'd be looking at is, you know, there's a system that you're working on and it's down for repairs. And you might be asking like, well, how often in a certain period of time, let's do 90 days, has system, let me make sure I actually get the number right, 354N, been down. Let's hope I spelled it correctly. And then, what you can imagine with this types of scenario is like, how do you feed your operations, into an AI system? How do you feed your maintenance documentation? How do you feed your logistics? How do you actually use this to say, okay, well, these are the last 3 times that this system has been down. Okay, is that abnormal? Like, what is the, I don't know if it'll know mean time between failure or not. Let's hope. 7534N. So I don't know if it'll be able to translate mean time to failure, but we'll give it a shot and see what it does. I think a lot of in the Air Force, I was an acquisition officer, but at least got exposed to maintenance times, maintenance operations and operational environments. The amount of time that people spend referencing data or not having access to data when they need it is astronomical. And so, imagine a system that actually has all of your maintenance records, all of your operations for long periods of time, and being able to, in the field, digest that. So like, take this simple case, your mean time between failures of your systems, typically, 95 days. In the last 90 days, it has 3 failures. Does that mean something is for sure wrong? No, that doesn't. But in a very quick way, you've been able to answer some simple questions, and then probably, with access to the right documentation, can probably actually dig in to learn more. And I have a couple other stuff I can show you and demo, but I see a number of questions coming in. Okay. Agree on the security piece and walling off the capability. How do you both feel about using AI to model and test software solutions in a lab with digital twins? Okay, this is interesting. Corey, do you want to take this one first?
Sure. How do you feel about using AI model? I mean, I think, sorry, maybe I missed the digital twin piece, but like model and test AI solutions. I think like when you talk about like bringing all those tools, all those capabilities, what people have today in private, to a sort of secure environment, right? You don't want to miss anything. And for me, like being able to iterate quickly, like, Copilot's amazing. Like I use it as like the best autocomplete in the world. And so it just insanely increases my ability to write code and respond and stuff like that. And I think when you think about people in those environments of the segregated networks, or in those environments, like wanting to be able to do those same things, that's kind of how I think of it. I don't know, Rob, if you have a different.
Yeah, I think digital twins is a loaded term. And so I'll ask the first one, how do you feel about using AI to test software solutions, just by and large? And I think they're great as long as you also have a great team of software engineers that are looking over in what it's doing. And so, AI is an accelerant. It is an enabler, especially from a software task. So you can use it to accelerate time, but it becomes even better when you pair it with somebody who knows what they're doing. And so it's really with that combination that I think it's great. It's fantastic. If you're doing it without any human expertise, then I think you're kind of rolling the dice and wouldn't recommend it.
Yeah, I 100%. At least when I see how I use it today, it is, I don't want to belittle it, but for me, it is 100% like super autocomplete. It is amazing, right? Now, would I trust it to do everything? Like, no.
And then, are there any other questions or comments for us? Truly exciting time. As mentioned at earlier, this is Mattermost's beta AI plugin, getting connected to Defense Unicorn's AI for National Security. Those two packaged together can help bring in, Gen AI solutions and really any disconnected, cloud, on-prem, or edge solution. So super excited about the use cases of both our current mission heroes and anyone else looking at how they can better leverage Gen AI systems for their missions. Cool. So appreciate the time, Corey.
Yeah.
Always a blast. Appreciate everybody who spent time with us on the live. Almost exactly 30 minutes on the dot, which is what we were looking for. Hope everybody has a great rest of your day, and thanks.
Yeah. Thanks for the time, and thanks all. It's been great. It's always fun.
Bye, guys.